to another episode of Sage Cigarettes Presents A Ghost in the Magazine.
I'm Stef.
And I'm Chris.
That's Chris. I'm so excited to have him here because I love him and his precious face. And this week, the Daddy Cage Fun continues with 2019's Grand Isle. But before we go into the movie, since Chris is a guest, he's never been here before, I want to ask him, what is the first scary movie that you remember watching?
All right. So, first scary movie that I remember watching would be Puppet Master when I was a little jit. However, that wasn't very scary to me. So the first movie that I was actually scared with is definitely the Halloween movies because Michael Myers is the devil.
Let me ask, what exactly about Michael Myers freaks you out?
He's creepy. He just stands there and stares intimidatingly, and he never runs, but he always catches who he wants. And he kills anyone for any reason. There's no rhyme or reason, so he's just crazy and demented.
True, that's valid.
Can't do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wish you guys could see the faces being made, but you can't because this is a podcast.
It's horrible. It just makes me shiver.
All right, so we're going to
Next
make
topic.
sure that we cover Halloween. We're going to have Chris back on the podcast.
Yay.
Okay, so Grand Isle. If you see the cover of this movie, and we'll definitely share it on our Twitter page if we haven't already, Nick Cage looks like a killer Mormon on the cover of this. Did you look at it at all?
Yes. He's going through it for sure. Not his best look, but I mean, I guess it fits the part because he's crazy in this movie.
He is crazy pants, and it's not his best look, but you know what? No matter what Nick Cage looks like in any film, he acts his ass off. And he does. It his all.
He definitely looks aged in this movie.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And he enjoys a good lots of beers every night.
Yeah, he had a pretty bad life, that's for sure.
He sure did. So in this movie, he plays a man named Walter. He is a
Marine.
Army? He's a Marine. Okay. But he's also a Marine, yes?
He's Army.
Okay, so they're both military men. Okay. So Nick Cage plays a man named Walter, and his wife's name is Fancy. Short for Francine. So they live in this, a nice little southern house. They both have, accents, and they have an image, but it's a surface image. So the movie starts, Fancy opens the door, and there are two little girls selling Girl Scout cookies. And, she wants to buy some cookies from the girl, and she looks at the little white one, and she tells her she's the prettiest little girl in the world. And rightfully so, the little black girl looks at her and says, "Are you okay?"
That was very strange. Very strange.
It was a very weird encounter because it's like she's playing a role. That's important.
It was rude too. How do you just skip over the black girl and say, "Oh, you're so pretty," and caress her face like that? You don't know her. Don't touch her.
Well,
Ew.
It's racist and it's creepy. It just kind of lends to who you slowly realize Fancy is. So, it goes from that to an intruder breaking into their house and doing the cliche, getting the candlesticks and shit. You don't know what that's made out of. Why aren't you looking for wallets or whatever? I'm not a burglar. So Walter gets up, gets his gun. The intruder goes out of the house, and Walter shoots him, and he hits the fence and he breaks it, which lends to Buddy having to be there. Buddy is a struggling Army vet trying to make money for his wife and his baby. His wife won't give him any. She's postpartum.
And the child is 6 months old. So just want to put that out there.
Right. Okay. So he's like, "Bitch, it's been 6 months. Let's make another baby." And she's like, "No, I get it. Shit postpartum. Her man is not making any money, and she's had it. Her baby is sick at that.
Yep.
The baby's sick. They don't have money to take the baby to the doctor. So she's like, "Well, who do you think I am having sex with you when our fucking baby's sick and we don't have any money?" And the thing that I remember now, he won't let her work. She's offering to get a job, and he's like, no,
Yep.
no. So you would rather let your family suffer than let her work. Okay.
Yep.
So, I mean, he goes to the house. Walter is immediately fucking weird. And him and Fancy have this weird thing. She puts on this like show because it's their anniversary, and like Vava Voom's down the stairs. And he's sitting in a chair with his sunglasses on, and she takes them off, and he didn't see a thing. So she's pissed. They've been together a long time. He never pays attention to her. So here's my thing: get a divorce. But I guess she's
For
like,
real.
Southern morals or whatever.
They're
But you know
crazy.
what?
They're crazy.
Morals where? Fancy. Where? That's the thing you choose to be moral about. Okay. That's fine.
We'll get into the rest.
Correct. So they're fucking weird. Walter's mad aggressive with Buddy about fixing the fence. You know, he's trying to get a good price for his labor, and the guy's like, knowing that a hurricane is coming. Yeah, well, if you get it done, then you get this amount. Otherwise, it's this amount. And he's like, okay, I'll try. Fancy makes it worse by like doing the old cliche, you want some iced tea with her titties out?
She was actually, what she said was, you want some? Long pause. Tea? It was very creepy and obvious too. And he fell for it.
Yeah, because he has a penis.
He's a weak ass bitch is what he is.
Yeah, all right. So Buddy's like, you know, like a young, strapping, good-looking dude, whatever. And he's up her ass from that point forward, but he's trying to pretend like there's a fighting chance.
To the point where after she asks him for tea and she's starting to walk away, he's too busy gawking at her to where he actually nails or he hammers his finger when he's trying to fix the fence.
Yeah,
Because
and she's like, oh, you need a Band-Aid?
She like sensually kisses it and like, oh, it was disgusting.
Like,
it was disgusting.
No offense, but he could have a blood disease and you just put that shit in your mouth. Like, he's
Oh,
a stranger. I think a little blood disease is the least of her fucking worries. So,
half the shit she does in this movie, yes.
all right, so the hurricane comes, so he can't finish fixing the fence. So they're like, oh, you want to stay? Well, not they. Fancy's like, oh, do you want to stay for dinner? He's like, no, my baby, my wife. But then his car doesn't start, so he goes back inside. Him and Walter have a weird thing, and he's like, let me call my wife and my baby. And the wife's pissed because she's like, you knew this hurricane was coming. You should have come home earlier. And now I'm stuck in a hurricane alone with a baby. And he's like, That's exactly what he sounded like.
He was awkward on the phone, too.
It was like, that's not your wife. They've known each other since middle school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I can't remember at which point it shows Buddy all cut up and he's in a police questioning room with Colonel Fraser. And I think that's from Elle, courtesy of
Yes.
Elle's notes. His name's Detective Jones, and he's literally played by Fraser, and he looks old as shit. Like, old.
His real name is Kelsey Grammer.
I know.
But I only know him as Fraser, so I do have him in here as Fraser is the investigator.
Wow. It's an interesting choice.
He's all grayed out, so he definitely does look like Colonel Sanders with a southern accent and everything. A shitty southern accent, but he tried.
I almost did a foghorn leghorn. Let me stop. Okay, so they're trying to pin Buddy for murder, and he's like, no, I didn't do it. Let me tell you all about these crazy fucking people. So that's a thing going on. And then everything that you see with Fancy and Walter, that's all Buddy explaining why he's not guilty and that they're crazy pants. So Buddy asks to use Walter's car to get home, asks for a ride maybe, but Walter's like, nah, there's a hurricane. So they have dinner together. It's fucking weird. And then Fancy gives Buddy a tour of the house, which is super weird. They're doing that. That's when you see the basement door that has the locks in it. And he's just like, oh, like, what's this? And she's like, terrible things are down there. Terrible. And I'm just like, okay, what's down there? Is it a monster? Is it dead bodies? There's a weird scene where she's asking him invasive questions and it's like, oh, have you ever thought about being with an older woman? And like, let me tell you about my fantasies about a younger man. And he lets her, and I'm like, bruh, you can easily get up. It's not holding you hostage. While this is happening, she's like flicking his buttons off and shit.
That was actually pretty cool. She used her heel to like undo the buttons, which I thought was talent. That's so good job, Fancy. Good
It
job.
is talent.
It's
But you know how
not
many
it's not her
times?
first time.
I was about to say, you know how many times she
Yeah,
probably popped them buttons off?
yeah.
But one of his buttons popped off, and I really liked the scene because it made me very anxious. One of his buttons, like from his pants, she flicked that shit off and it landed close to the door. And Walter had woken up for some reason because he's like narcoleptic or he just drank too much. And he was like sleeping in a chair because that's his favorite thing to do. And he started walking towards the door and then he's listening. And she's got her high heeled foot on Buddy's chest.
And it's like the whole scene is like Nick Cage walking slowly, and like you can hear the creaking of the floor and all that, and then you can see the shadow of his footsteps as the little button rolls up to the door. It was super creepy. And poor little Buddy, I mean, I say poor little Buddy now, but now I have no remorse at all. He was just terrified.
I was also terrified. Like,
Yeah.
how ominous. But then he leaves and she looks at Buddy and she's like, he's gone. I'm like, bitch. Yeah, so that's when Buddy realizes Fancy's crazy as fuck. And he goes downstairs and Buddy lays down and falls asleep in these people's house. I don't understand.
He's stupid.
I could never. These are strangers, and you just realize that this bitch is crazy, and you then realize that the dude is crazy, and you're gonna fall asleep. Couldn't be me. So when he wakes up, Walter's sitting across him holding a gun pointed at him because he's crazy. And then Walter's like, let's go have a drink in the attic.
It's the last place that I'd want to go with anybody who has a gun.
Yeah, that's how you freaking die. So, Walter's talking about his time in the military, and then Buddy tells the story, and they start talking about shit about the government and blah 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 blah. So Walter whips out a bag of money, a big bag of money, and it's like, I want you to kill my wife with this cyanide because she has blood cancer and I don't want her to suffer like that. And he's like, no, okay.
The whole thing just doesn't sound right. It doesn't make any sense at all.
You can never pay me enough money to murder someone.
Honestly, and then he offered $20,000. What is that supposed to do? 20,000 is not going to do shit for you. You're not going to go anywhere.
It's not even going to bail you out of jail when you get caught.
And I definitely wouldn't do it for some random stranger in their house. He could twist it any which way.
It's just not believable. And he may be crazy, but considering he's an old white man who was in the military, he probably has connections.
True.
So, Buddy goes to look for her to kill her, but she's in a bathtub filled with bubbles, and he can't resist himself, and they have sex.
That's an interesting way to put it.
That's just that's the skinny of it. But then she finds the cyanide, and he's like, so you don't have cancer? And she's like, no, I don't. But don't worry, I'll handle this.
That's another sign, by the way. That's another sign that he should have figured out that maybe he should just get the fuck out and not stay.
Because if I see a bottle of cyanide, how the fuck is this in my house in the first place?
Right.
Did you do this? Did you bring this into my house? But also, I wouldn't be fucking a strange man while I'm married in my bathroom. So
while he's in the house, he's just a couple rooms over. Makes no sense.
He was just pointing a revolver at you on the couch, bro.
Yeah. Also, I just want to point out, normal people don't just whip out a gun several times throughout this movie. Because when he was fixing the fence earlier on in the day, Nick decided to set up some bottles along the fence line where he's actively working, and then he just walks back up to his roof and he gets his little sniper rifle and he shoots these bottles right next to him, scaring the fuck out of him. Why didn't he run away at that point?
But he stayed.
Yeah,
I guess he was feeling desperate, but I'm never that desperate for a cat. I would literally rather like
anything.
You can see my titty for $10 or something like that.
he could have worked at that restaurant that they were at that earlier that morning where she said she wanted to work at. The
Mm-hmm.
baby mama. I don't know
But I
her
think
name.
she's an almost nothing character. But he probably felt like that was beneath him, and he's looking for man's work. That's why he won't let her work.
That's where you went wrong.
I mean, he went wrong a lot of places.
Yes.
Shit gets crazy at this point because she says, "Oh, I'll handle it," and she stabs Walter in the hand while he's boarding up the windows for the storm like a crazy bitch. And
Plus, he already got off, so he doesn't want to do that again. He's done.
that
He's ready to
part,
go back to his home with his kid
right.
and his wife.
At this point, Buddy wants to know what's in the fucking basement and
Yeah.
goes to open the basement. Fancy shoots him or shoots at him, and he's like, "Okay." So they're in cahoots.
And then she sets him free. She undoes his binds.
Yeah,
And
she
then
undoes Walter.
and Walter says, "Did you have to stab me that hard?" Excuse me? What?
Yeah, like it's a thing that they do a lot and or have rehearsed a lot because they're both crazy. So they're chasing Buddy and Fancy knocks him out. I forget with what, but when he comes to,
Uh,
he's in a truck with a dead body.
It was a skillet.
Oh, she knocked him
Yeah.
out with a skillet.
Because
Ugh.
when he was running away from them, he knocks something over onto Walter, and then he runs upstairs and he tackles Fancy, and then continues to run all the way up to the attic because that's the best place to go, obviously, because he clearly wants to die. And
Right.
then he gets a gun and shoots it. There's only one bullet, and then they go into this whole fight scene with Walter and Buddy, and he knocks him out. Walter falls out of the attic onto the floor or whatever, and he's like, stunned for a second. So Buddy's running outside. He's trying to go out the door, and I guess he's having some issues with opening the door, and then all of a sudden there goes Fancy with a skillet to the face, and he's
Right to the
knocked out.
face.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, Colonel Fraser doesn't believe this story because it's freaking crazy. Oh, I forgot to mention. There's voodoo dolls everywhere, little ones. And I mean, this is the most important part. Fancy can't have kids, which is why it's just her and Walter in this weird house together. Like they're old. They've been together for a long time. And she wants kids and she don't have any. That's why she was oogling the little girl at the beginning.
I don't understand where the voodoo dolls came, or why it's important, or why they kept showing it, because they showed it a couple times too.
Hmm.
Um, and towards the beginning, and I thought that it meant she was some sort of witch or something. But that didn't really happen. She's just crazy.
I really couldn't piece together where they could possibly fit at all, like at any point in the movie. And then I was like, oh, maybe it's an aesthetic. She wants to be mysterious.
Or maybe it's like maybe her version of like little baby dolls or something, because she wants a big family or something. I don't know.
So obviously, Detective Jones didn't believe him. Baby mama comes to the thing and she's like just believing what other people say, but you've known this man for forever, and it's because the detective or whatever, which he should not have done, like basically whispered in her ear, "Hey, what up with that fancy bitch though?" And she's like, "Who's
But
fancy?" You're not supposed to release details like that when you're
no.
questioning someone. I'm not even a cop, and I know that. I've seen enough CSI. Oh, now I remember. Okay, so he was going on and on, but he was about this piece of dress he found in a dead guy's or a dying guy's hand that was red and it had Chinese letters on it. Behind the glass, there's this lady detective or assistant. I'm not really sure who she is. And even though Colonel Fraser is going in on this guy, she's the one with sense in her brain and was like, hey, innocent until proven guilty, motherfucker. And I think we're onto something, and shows him a picture, which if he was a good detective at all, he would have remembered that if it's the only picture they have of the victim. So, yep. So then, they go after Fancy, they get a warrant and whatever. He takes off. All the cops are slowly disappearing into the open basement. And so like they don't come back. And then you're like, what's in the basement? It was teenagers. It was missing teenagers were in the base. So
Locked in
obviously,
rooms in the
yes, like
basement.
separate rooms. So I'm like, what is going on with the architecture of this house? First of all, uh, okay, so that's a thing, and then we'll talk about that in a second. But eventually, Walter kidnaps the baby mama because he's gone. They're looking for him. He's all like freshly shaven. He's in his old uniform, and he's got the girl. And Buddy switches place with her, and he's like, "Ooh, this is a sacrifice." And he goes on about the military stuff and how they don't care about you, which is valid. And you kind of feel bad for him then, even though like he's a crazy dude. So he goes out in blazing glory and starts shooting cops, and the cops. All right, so the deal with these teenagers in the basement, I thought she was kidnapping teenagers to be her children.
That's
But
so
it's not.
skeevy. No, apparently what she was doing was kidnapping these kids because she couldn't have kids and she was forcing them to have babies for them. Or that was the grand scheme of things.
Which is so stupid. If you're gonna kidnap kids. No, I'm not condoning kidnapping children at all. I'm not.
Don't torture. It was
But
pure torture. These were like 14-year-old girls too. It's disgusting. So the whole thing was they kidnapped these girls, kept them underground in their basement. And I guess the guy who was because I was confused at first because the beginning scene with the dude who was trying to burgle their house, and then
yes.
he got shot, and the reason why Buddy was there in the first place is because the fence was broken. I was like, the first time I had to watch it twice. The first time I was like, what happened with this guy? I haven't heard of him. Like he just disappeared. And then the second time I realized that he's the dying guy in the basement. The whole purpose of that was after he shot the guy, I guess he wanted to frame Buddy for
Hmm.
his death, so he kept him alive wherever he was hidden with an IV long enough to trick Buddy so that they can knock him out because after he got hit with the skillet, he woke up in a truck, in his truck, and his dead body was in the passenger seat on the floor area with a bullet to his head, framing him for that murder.
It's weird because here's my thing. If that's a lot of work. How about instead you just kick his ass, the burglar, take your shit and throw him out of your house. He won't come back.
That's the easy way out.
Okay, so they're just
Yeah.
complicated individuals. I mean, yes,
Well,
yes, they are.
yes. Walter's just demented. He's fucked up in the head because apparently when he was in the military, he was 17 and he was supposed to be going on his first mission, but he got injured. And so they sent him home. And because they sent him home, what happened was his crew went on their first mission and they all died. And so now he has survivor's remorse because he survived. And he keeps saying that if he was there, maybe he could have saved them or whatever, which may not have been the case. But that's fucked up his head, and now he's like 55 and just crazy as fuck. And he met
Yeah.
Fancy, who's also demented in every which way
Yes.
possible.
True. And I feel bad for Walter after watching the whole movie because you can tell that he just loved Fancy and he got wrapped up in everything and she took advantage of him. And his like mental state with the PTSD and all that. And then at the end when he's just like I don't have anything else. Like no, you shouldn't have kidnapped teenagers. But love makes you do crazy things, especially if you're not all the way there to begin with. So here's my theory about the voodoo dolls. I just wonder because I mean, maybe we do, and I just wasn't paying attention. I don't really know that there was a timeline for how long they had been kidnapping kids.
I think I heard on the news that there were 4 missing kids, but we only really know of 2 of them.
Okay. So we don't know how long that they've been doing that and how many babies came to term or whatever. So what if the voodoo dolls are the kids that they've lost because they don't have any babies, so they must not have been able to get any babies out of the situation.
Maybe I didn't think of it that way. That could
Or
have been
how
it.
many kids they've kidnapped because they were together for a long time.
True. Because if I remember correctly, I think she had grabbed one of the voodoo dolls as she was watching Buddy fix the fence. And side note, how long does it take him to fix that little patch of fence that he had to fix?
It
He
was like
had
3
all
planks.
day. Yeah, and he took forever, and then at the end, it still wasn't done.
It looked like nothing was done
So
except for, like,
yeah,
the main little support beam or whatever,
yeah,
but maybe that's why he can't make any fucking money because he's
probably
not a good handyman.
he's not the brightest neither. Why would you fix a fence if there's going to be this crazy hurricane coming through? It's just there's a good chance it might break again. Wait until after and then get it fixed.
But he's not a smart man for falling for all of that. And, like, when he immediately got weird about money, I would have just bounced and been like, I can find another job."
I was also a little confused at first because they never say what year it is, and yeah, no one seems to have any cell phones. So I did the research, and fun fact, it takes place in 1988.
Oh,
So
before we was
yes,
born.
before we were born. Yes, not much before, but
Still.
but still before. And so there weren't any cell phones at all during that time, which makes a little bit more sense. But still, I mean, I feel like people were still smarter than the way they were. They made stupid mistakes.
Yes. Yes, they did. But you know what? I guess it'd be like that sometimes. You know what? She could have been a witch. I think that would make this a lot more fun to speculate on. But then if she's not very good of a witch because she got caught.
Before I get into this part, this is what irritated me. A lot of things irritated me, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. But this one particular part, when the police officers got their warrant and they went into the house, there was three male officers and one female detective. They go inside, and the female detective and one of the officers, probably the stupidest of the bunch,
Oh, he loved
decide
it.
to, yeah, definitely. He was just dumbfounded. I think they just gave him his position because they needed a spot to fill, and
Hmm.
he like scored the least on his academy test. I don't know, but those they were watching, the two crazy people, Walter and Fancy, and as the other two officers are searching the house, they check upstairs, the other rooms, and then they decide to go to the basement. Which in the interrogation, Buddy was pretty adamant about checking that basement.
Hmm.
Um, so they finally go down there. They disappear, doing whatever. So the female detective's like, "Hold on, I'll be right back. Watch these two," and she leaves Doofus alone with the
Yes.
the two murderers and or alleged murderers and kidnappers at this point. So she goes downstairs and she's the one that finds the kids. I don't know what the other two dumb fuck cops are doing because they're obviously not doing their job or doing it well. And then the police officer who's watching Fancy and Walter turns around and looks towards the direction where the basement is, turning his back against the crazy two fucks that are right next to him. And obviously, they're talking about oh, we're gonna get caught, blah blah blah. He's like 3 feet away from them. He can't hear them talking. One, two. Walter
Yeah.
goes up to the officer guy and he says, "Oh, my cat is stuck up a tree. Can you go shoot him for me?" And then the officer turns around, and is like, "What?" And he says it again. My cat is stuck up on a tree, and then punches the officer. The dumbest officer I've ever known, ever, hands
To
down.
maintain distance, no, you stay there. Don't move. Don't walk
Yes,
towards me. I will shoot you in the face.
yes. Keep them away from each other. Sit down. Like
I didn't
there's
mean to
so many
yell
things.
that, but I also was like, "What the fuck?" while I was watching it. Like, what kind of cop are you? What kind of little rinky-dink town,
Yeah.
or like the town in Wolf Cop? What kind of rinky-dink force you got going on here? Like, they should have
Then
waited. They waited for the others to come back.
then once Walter punches him, he runs out to his car and he's leaving. Leaves Fancy. Fancy's like, "What? No, you can't leave me." Standing by the door like there's a force field not letting her leave the fucking door. She could have ran right
She
behind him.
said, "I'm not leaving this house."
She's dumb. And so she gets caught, and that's the last we see of her. And then the police officers are just staring at him leaving and shooting at him, but not getting into their cars to chase him down. I wonder why he got away. But what can we
Lucky for
ask
them, he
for?
came back because they never would have found him otherwise.
Yeah. He looked like a completely different person though.
Yeah, he did, and that's one of Daddy Cage's many talents. He is a chameleon, but he can bring back old things if he needs to, like the vampire's kiss.
Oh my god.
It's Cage month.
I don't know if you noticed it, but at the end, right before he went hoorah and went for his suicide by police officer, um he was sounding like Forrest Gump.
Yes,
Like his southern accent like came out of nowhere and it was super thick and he was like elongating the sentences like
it was for
very
dramatic effect,
Forrest
I'm
Gump like.
sure. Like,
It did it for me. I liked it. What a way
I
to go
liked it too.
out.
He's
What
like,
a way
I'm
to
about
go
to
out.
do a thing.
Yeah.
Let me stretch my word. Alrighty. Do you have any final thoughts?
Overall, I liked the movie. There were things that were just you're stupid. But I did like the movie. It just was very, very strange. Um, Cage. He is very talented. He's just a weird individual. And I just think about things like to do these types of scenes, what does he do to get prepared to do it? Like
I'm
is it
sure
method
he's a method
acting?
actor. I'm sure he is. I just feel it in my soul, and we could Google it for
Yeah.
like a fun fact next episode. But
Yeah, he definitely gets into characters. And I do also, a fun fact, something I found out is that in 2019, Grand Isle was the sixth movie he made that year. And
wow,
that's a lot for an actor.
so Daddy puts in work, is what you're saying.
Oh yes, he puts everything into it. But also, I think a lot of the movies that he played in during that year were kind of similar. Like he was always the crazy, just kind of psychotic. There's something mentally wrong with him kind of scenes.
Yes,
Like
because he plays that well. We talk about it all the time. He plays unhinged or on the verge of becoming unhinged so well.
I wonder if that's who he is in real
You
life.
know what? I don't want to know. I don't want
Yeah,
to ruin the
I know.
magic.
For instance, there was another movie called Primal, who he starred in, and it's also in 2019. He also plays. He's not as crazy, but he's definitely an asshole. He's 100% an asshole. It's a good movie. I enjoyed it. Also because
I'll watch that one.
his range of acting is pretty impressive. So
It is. You should
this
watch The Color Out of Space, which we covered during 31 Days of Horror. That movie is intense and
I
kind of
definitely have
gross.
that on my list.
So you watch that. I'll watch Primal for extra credit for the next episode.
That'd be fun.
Cool.
But this was a really good movie. What did you think about the movie?
I liked it. I did, and I would definitely watch it again for certain lines. Though Elle is not with us, she is with us in spirit, and she left us some of her notes. There is one note. I think they were at dinner, but they may not have been because there were many, many, many uncomfortable conversations between Walter and Buddy. And Walter was really setting Buddy up to fuck his wife. So he asked him, "When's the last time you got your cock sucked?" He just was very inquisitive there, and Elle said she choked. Um, Same.
And Fancy was literally like 10 feet behind him doing or making tea or something, some shit like that. Literally
She was
right in the
lingering.
room. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It was very strange.
They're
And
strange people.
that's another sign that hey, maybe I should just stay in my broken down fucking truck.
Especially
Maybe
in
I should get out.
1988.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Walter tampered with his truck.
Oh, I'm certain.
to
I'm certain
to
that he
keep him
pulled
there.
something out or whatever.
Yeah,
However, cars work.
they
You know
should
he
have
did
showed
something.
that in the movie though,
I
or something,
agree.
you know.
Yeah, there were some minor tweaks that could have been made. I feel like to take this movie to the next level, but it was good. I will definitely watch this again in the near future. You really can't go wrong with a Daddy Cage movie. And for the record, Chris watched Wicker Man with me. Yeah, and had that little disagreement.
This isn't true.
Where
This
I
never
was right. I
happened.
want to put that on
This
record.
this isn't how I remembered it at all, actually. So
Yeah, well, your memory is wrong. So,
that didn't count. Figment of your imagination. Um, Before we sign off, I do want to
sure.
also include how Cage's martial arts skills is something to talk about. He definitely Power Ranger kicked Buddy in the attic. I don't know if you noticed that, and Buddy like just flew back. It
He
was
did.
pretty entertaining. Pretty
He did,
entertaining.
and that was notable because it really seemed like Buddy was kicking his ass because he
Yeah.
was like a young guy, and then he whipped out that kick, and I was like, "Oh, your life's over."
And then Buddy goes and kicks him in the leg, and that's what causes him to fall out of the attic down the steps onto
Hmm.
his face, and still
Yeah,
knocked out, and still not knocked out, which is
because
pretty
he's a
impressive.
powerhouse. Sweep the
He's a
leg. So yeah, his little kicks have definitely gotten better since Wicker Man. So congratulations, Daddy Cage. Um, okay, so that's it. Next week's movie, the Cage fun continues. We're gonna watch Willy's Wonderland. You can find the podcast on Twitter at GITM Podcast. You can find me on Twitter at WitchXPudding.
And you can find me on Twitter at Christolykos, which is XRISTOLYKOS. Thank you. It's been fun.
Okay, bye.